We're with Terry Liskevych today. This man has an incredible resume. He coached 3 different Division I teams, the U.S. Olympic team in volleyball. He played a very high level of soccer, and he also did some things in terms of development away from sports that we believe are applicable, and we're happy to have him on the show today. Thank you, Terry.
BJ, my pleasure. Look forward to it.
Terry, let's go and start with the beginning before the coaching. You played a lot of sports, but you didn't play volleyball till 17. And there's this new phrase terminology of late bloomers coming on, and it's accurate because of a bunch of reasons. But you really weren't a late bloomer. You were an excellent athlete in other sports. How did those sports prepare you for volleyball? And the one that interests me most is you were really good at table tennis.
Yeah, VJ, I think, I started playing table tennis at age 5 with my dad, who was a good athlete. And it took me, in the beginning, he'd play me left-handed and give me 10 points. And finally, 6 years later, at 11 years old, I beat him straight up, right-handed. So, I always think that my development, very important to have played both an individual sport and a team sport, because it teaches you different things. You got to rely on yourself individually, and then team sport, you could rely on your teammates. But both in table tennis, which is, the key to table tennis is really being able to move left and right and getting back in position. Eye-hand coordination, really critical. And then the other part is when I then progressed to tennis, tennis was very much like volleyball because there's a net in between you and the opponent. And so that helped, and it's really great for foot movement, same as volleyball, soccer, tennis, have all important issues of moving your feet, taking a quick first step, and more importantly, balance. Those the sports really gave me a good body position balance, and knowing that at an early age, those really helped me when I started playing volleyball.
Our company is called Balance Excellence. We say one of our catchphrases, we specialize in balance. I just want to go back to what you said a couple of minutes ago so that our listeners can understand how really important that balance is. You said the individual sports helped you with the team sports. Can you elaborate a little bit on that for our viewers? Because
Sure.
It's very important.
Individual sports really taught you that you've got to be mentally tough because it's up to you. And then once you got into the team sports, that really helped with your mindset. But now knowing that you have the support of your team, and how then can you fit your role for the greater good, which is the team winning. You no longer are winning individually. You need to know that it's a team concept. And those are really different elements that I think all kids should play an individual sport and a team sport. And that really will help them in their appreciation of pressure, anxiety, and that it's up to you. And then also, how could I really transform that into being a better teammate?
And again, Terry, it wasn't just individual and team sports that helped your development. Could you talk to our viewers about your involvement with Plast and how that social aspect transfers to the athletics? Because we say athletics are a microcosm of life.
Yeah, Plast is it was a Ukrainian scouting, and I always say that you got to understand that this was I wasn't born here. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Germany in a displaced persons camp, but my parents were the first generation that came here. And they lived in the Ukrainian community, the Ukrainian diaspora in Chicago. Ukrainian scouting was like commando training. And I'll tell you right now that a lot of our guys that went to basic training in the Army would say, hey, that was nothing compared to what we did in Plast. And Plast really taught you lots of different things, leadership skills. It taught you how to be self-reliant, how to really work with nature on these camps, where we'd have to be sometimes in camps where, hey, we couldn't use a nail or a screw, but we had to put together a lean-to or build a shelter with just rope, wood that we would cut trees and make a lean-to or make a shelter. Lots of great survival skills were also taught, and so it was being able to read maps, topographic maps, being able to use a compass to find yourself, doing a lot of what we'd called wide, WIDE, wide games, learning different games in terrain, both day and night. All those things were important in the development of self-reliance, confidence, leadership. Helped me a lot.
And I want my listeners to watch, because you know how, if you, with my podcast, how big I am on body language. Look how Terry was smiling. Replay this part of the video when we brought that up and relived it. And what I want our listeners to understand, if your sports life experience aren't bringing these kind of smiles to you during the journey, and then you will look back fondly, you need to reevaluate where you are, because maybe you're doing what you're doing for the wrong reason. Is that a fair statement?
BJ, I could listen, and that applies to sport at all levels. When, my last coaching job was at Oregon State, and the first thing I would ask a young lady that would visit our campus, and they started visiting younger and younger. We had 7th, 8th graders visiting, which was absurd. But I'd always ask the same question. I'd say, the first question I would ask is, do you enjoy playing volleyball? Do you have fun playing volleyball? Because if you don't, why are you doing it? And the other reason is, if you don't enjoy it, you're never going to spend the time to hone your skills to be good at it. And also the enjoyment, hey, we go through life one time, and we got to make sure that we're enjoying what you do. It's like, hey, it's an old adage, everybody's heard this. Find out what you really enjoy doing, and then figure out how society can pay you for it. That's a great thing that I've done all my life, and I've been happy throughout. So,
Terry, you took up volleyball late, and as I mentioned in the intro, it's not that you were a late bloomer, because you had already played soccer for the Lions, the big premier soccer team in Chicago. Can you talk about that transition to volleyball, and then how that, again, changed your path in life, so that people can understand there's so many things that you have to have life skills, coping skills for, that are come at you, so that you can make decisions based on a bunch of facts and not just somebody telling you to do something. Coping skills.
I was lucky in soccer, which was, again, a very European sport at that time. I played starting, again, very young, 9, 10 years old. And then I had a very important coach when I was 14, 15. It was a man by the name of Luis Balboa, who came from Argentina. He played on the Argentine national team. He was the father of Marcelo Balboa, who was the great defender for the USA team back in 1994. But anyway, Louis really taught us a lot. And then I had the privilege of playing with Louis in the major division when I was 17, 18. And I was the captain at Loyola of their first varsity team, Loyola University. But soccer really was what I was playing at that time at a high level. And a lot of East Coast guys from New Jersey were soccer players, the Chižević brothers, Walt and Gene Chižević. Later, one of them was the USA national soccer coach. And so a lot of these guys that played on the USA national team in soccer would always say, Terry, you got to play volleyball. And I'd go, my sister plays volleyball. But they kind of got me to at least consider it. And at a Plost camp in the summer, I started playing volleyball outside on the grass and on clay and on dirt when I was 17, and I really took to it. But the soccer experience, look, it was high-level soccer. It was team sport. It was, again, skill-based sport, as all these sports are. You have to have the skills in soccer, being able to stop a ball, dribble, pass, shoot, head, chest stop, on and on. Well, volleyball was the same way. Hey, I had to learn how to forearm pass, set, hit, block, serve, play defense. So the skills that I had learned, as we've said before, on balance and footwork really applied to what I learned in volleyball at age 17. And it really hooked me. I started playing outdoors. I really Then started playing on the beach in Chicago, Oak Street Beach. I was one of the better players there in the history of Oak Street Beach. And then we started an indoor team called the Chicago Ukrainians, and I was the tallest player at a little over 6 foot. And we were quite good. But then on the beach, I was really good. And I started playing against some of these guys that were on the USA national team. And they'd say, hey, you ought to come play with our team, Kenneth Allen, because it's coached by the USA Olympic coach. So one thing led to another. And then at that time, I was a pre-med biology major. And I went to med school, Loyola Med School Stritch. And then I quit after 1 year to play volleyball on Coleman's club team. I was already playing on his club team, to also be his assistant coach at George Williams College for the men's team. And the rest is history. You know, I stayed there, coached. We won an NAIA national championship. Then I went to Ohio State coaching men, and still kept playing on the Chicago Volleyball Club after Kenneth Allen. That was Coleman's team, then the Columbus Caps. So in those days, it was really different because it was just a traveling weekend, like an AAU basketball team. It was exactly like that. You know, you finish work on Friday, travel, play all day Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. the next morning, get back in the car and drive back. So we were a barnstorming Kenneth Allen, Chicago Volleyball Club, Chicago Ukrainians, Columbus Caps, and it was a very different world at that time.
Terry, I want to, again, take something that you just said in that answer, and we call it the synthesis level of thinking. You take two things that maybe don't seem to be related for our audience and put them together to come to a conclusion that helps you in a multitude of things. You said the soccer players encouraged you to play volleyball. Well, two things I want to ask you. One, once you get to that elite level, it's almost important, if not as important, to be a great teammate as it is your talent. And two, because you were a great teammate, they encouraged you to do other things because that would make you better and everything would come back to the team to being more competitive. Is that fair?
No, I think it's fair. You know, all of those guys were, I mean, competitors. A lot of them were really good tennis players. A lot of them were very good soccer players. I think certainly learning other sports is going to make you better for the sport that you're playing because it teaches you sports sense. It teaches you reading the game. It teaches you relying on teammates. All of those things are very, very true.
Terry, you also mentioned AAU. And again, we try to educate our listeners in a very nice, non-lecturing way because most of them have children or they're involved in sports. You said it was AAU travel, but that travel is way different then than it is now in terms of the money base, the scholarship chase, which we're going to talk in another segment. But the way you did it was way more for the pure love of it versus a goal of trying to get somewhere.
No question. I mean, and look, Kenneth Allen, Jim Coleman was the USA Olympic coach. He was the coach of Kenneth Allen. We were the best team east of California. And these were the who's who of like 6, 7 states. Hey, we got 2 sets of uniforms. We got a warm-up suit. And they helped us with tickets for the nationals. Everything else we paid for on our own. And there was no college volleyball at that. There was college volleyball, but not to the extent that certainly it is now. This was pre-Title IX, and there wasn't this enormous push on club sports at a young age. These were older people playing traveling ball. It wasn't only AAU, it was also USA Volleyball had the USVBA was called at that time. It was all part of this. And for sure, we played for the love of the game. And I think that sometimes is not found this day and age because so many people are looking at the end goal of my son or daughter will have a college scholarship, which we know is not that easy to get. And I think it takes away from also that, are you doing it because you like doing it? Are you doing it because you're having fun? It can't be, the process of becoming a good athlete, the process of playing is so much more important than the end goal. And I think people need to understand that. And certainly in those days, we didn't have that, club sports for kids started really in the 70s, late 70s, and really blossomed in the 80s and 90s. It's a train that's left the station. It's out of control.
Terry, and this, my third book is Does Your Mind What You're Doing to Your Body? And for my viewers, I've sent it to Terry, and you can email me and we'll send it to you also. What we believe is when you have that balance, when you have that love of the game, the desire to get up after failure is much more intrinsic than an extrinsic force coming from a parent, a coach, or money.
No, there's no question. Look, if you take any top professional athlete, she or he are going to tell you it's not about the money. It's about being the best that you can be. And they are lucky that they make a lot of money, but it certainly is not to please your parents or please your coach. It's got to be about you, and it is intrinsic. And certainly, I really feel that we've taken that away, because in the overemphasis in club sports, where the coach becomes that most important person, and he or she are telling the kids exactly what they have to do at every spot, that's crazy. I think we've gotten away. Look, the way I learned table tennis, there were no adults there. The way I learned soccer, there were no adults there. The way I learned volleyball, there were no adults there. So you had to figure out the rules, and you have to figure out, hey, if Johnny can't play well, maybe you'd give him another chance or something. And we've distorted that system, and we've also made it's all become adults telling you what to do, and it's also pay for play. And when it becomes pay for play, it's no longer the pedagogy of teaching skills or teaching life skills. It becomes winning. And if winning is the only thing you're worried about, you're in deep trouble, because if you play long enough, you're going to win as much as you're going to lose. So,
our last question in this segment is for the parents, for Terry to explain it. Please go online, look at his Wikipedia biography. It's fabulous. The parents are spending money. So now in the 70s, let's just say 60s and 70s, some parents didn't do well, weren't good athletes, so they lived vicariously through their children. Our contention is, and we have a whole program and a presentation that we do on this, our whole gist of what we're talking to people about balance is that now, because of the money, they're actually partnering. And whether you see the Little League World Series where they have the kid's name at 12 and team his parents it's a team with his name on it, or they're going to the gym first before the child gets in, or they're wearing all the gear, is that distortion, that adulting of that process actually inhibits the development of the child, because they're expecting something, and the development with a linear curve, and the development is very messy.
No, there's no doubt. I have these VJ cartoons that I'll share with you, and you can show people. One is a homeless person with a sign saying, "I failed to live up to the expectation of my parents. Please help." Or hey, it's about the kids. And you got to understand that, I had a great story about that. Is my son that played Little League Baseball, and he had a great coach, Larry Silvet, who was a top financier here in the area. But Larry was a Division I basketball and baseball player in college. And Larry was my age, and he was so great with the kids. And I remember at one game, there was another young coach of the opposing team, and he's into it and yelling at the kids and the parents of that team. And in between innings, nobody heard this, but I was at the backstop, and I overheard Larry saying to this young person, "Hey, son, check your ego at the game and control your parents. This is about the kids." And that's what we've lost, because it's become a whole, like you've said, adult-centric, and it's not, like, hey, my two children played soccer at a very high level, both played college, and the other is that I'd always ask him when I'd pick him up at the end of practice, "Did you have fun?" And not, "Hey, how many goals did you score?" Those are The parents, I could talk on and on. I remember when my daughter was 8 or 9 years old playing on Surf Soccer, one of the best soccer clubs in America. But I remember a mother saying to the daughter within earshot of everybody, "You're going to be the next Mia Hamm." Well, I'm not sure the mom understood who Mia Hamm really is. And that is a tough thing to tell an 8 and 9-year-old. And is it for the mother or is it for the young lady? Now, if the young lady all of a sudden starts picking up on Mia Hamm, that won the World Cup in '99 and was one of the great players in the history of North Carolina soccer, on and on and on, that's different. But if it's mom telling you that or dad telling you that, that's really bad.
Well, and if she's 8 years old, the only thing she's thinking about after the game is snack.
Sure. Where's the ice cream? That's, hey, college kids, we're going to have a little blog on Art of Coaching. We're talking about reinforcing college teams. We've said this about with gelato or an ice cream or whatever after you win a match. Even at that age, they do it. So you can imagine that the young kids are going, hey, give me my snack for sure.
We've been with Terry Liskevych. This is part 1 of our 2-part series. Thank you for joining us.